Hello, we're still on loops, and this is in fact the last control structure I'll be talking about here. So, while loop, as we've seen in the previous video, loops just let you repeat a line of code for a number of times based on a certain condition. And while loop does the same thing but in a different way than the for loop that we just saw. For loops mostly work with counters, like we had a counter variable which we can increase or decrease. But for loop work more with conditions, and it will continue executing the code so long as that condition is true, and once the condition is false, it stops. So what does a while loop look like? And as I like to do, I'll be giving you the structure. So a while loop looks even more like a for loop, and it goes like this: while condition, close brackets, open braces, and we'll have our statements. Okay, you can see that this is very similar to to an if statement. An if statement is just this. Okay. All right, but your while loop, we're saying continue to execute this number of statements in this block of code while this condition remains true. So how does that look like in an actual code? We can do something similar to what we did with the for statements, and we can say provided a certain number is just less than another value, we can keep printing. So something similar to what we did in the for loop. So how does this work in your while statement? Let's just have a variable var. I can still use the value counter equals to 0, and now let's have our while statement. We can say while the value counter is less than or equal to 10, open braces, close braces, and in here we have our statements. Remember, in your block you can have as many lines of code as you want to, but I'm just using one, and I'm using it to print the value of counter to the screen. So what happens here is we'll say while counter is less than or equals to 10, document the right line counter. But guess what? If we should run this code, we would run into some issues because counter is always 0. Okay, even if let me change this to 1. Even if I change it to 1, counter is always 1. So what happens? We check, is 1 less than or equals to 10? Yes, it prints 1 to the screen. Is it less than or equals to 10? Yes, it prints it to the screen. And that keeps on going forever. Like, I don't even want to run this code because I don't want to freeze my browser or my computer right now, because it would keep on running for a long time until the browser actually crashes. So loops are actually dangerous, so you need to be careful and make sure that the condition you provide when using the loop is relatively accurate, or otherwise you might just run out of memory and crash your program. Your operating system knows how to handle these cases, so you won't actually break your system, but your computer might just be unusable for a period of time until the program stops executing. So what do I need to do? I need a way to increase counter, and I can actually just do that here. Since we can have multiple lines of code in our while statement, right here I want to increase counter by 1, and I can just do counter plus plus. So what happens now? When we print counter to the screen, we increase it by 1, counter becomes 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So if I should save this and refresh, now we get 1 to 10. Okay, so you can see we've just replicated a similar example to the for loop, but using a while loop now. But as you can see, in your while loop, we just needed only the condition, and we had separate statements to define like our variables and our count and increase our counters. There are some cases where you don't need counters in your while loop, and that's where while loop actually stands out from your for loop. So remember, you can play with this example, change the values, in fact print something different. For instance, you can concatenate a string here saying the value is, okay, save that, refresh, you can see the value is 1, the value is 2, okay, and up to 10. So you can actually play around with this and see how your while loop functions. Remember the structure, look at this example, and you see that while loops are actually, and loops in general, are really interesting because of what you can do by making lines repeat for a number of times.